NOLIE2PI is a project I made which uses a Raspberry Pi to create a polygraph device. So this is a completed version of the project, and it is comprised of a Raspberry Pi Model 4, a Grove base hat for Raspberry Pi, a Grove GSR sensor, galvanic skin response, which measures skin conductivity through perspiration, and a Max 3102 pulse oximeter connected with a VIN to pin 1, a SCA connection to pin 3, SCL to pin 5, and ground to pin 9. So the way this works is each of these sensors will be reading in data from the finger and then using them to store readings for various questions, which are a part of tests that you can then see live on screen over here. So you can see right now that each test and its associated questions are also associated with a user. So this is a list of the current users, but let's create our own. So we have test 1 through 4. Let's create test 5 and continue the trend. So we can see that our new user was created, and then we could pick from any one of these tests, and this menu only shows tests conducted on the given day, just because if there's a test that was conducted on a day like a week or two ago, then it wouldn't really be making sense to add new questions to that test since it's fundamentally different timeframes. So we'll add a test, and then from here we can add a question. So let's have something really deep and philosophical. Alright, if anyone has an answer to that, let me know. So we add the question, and you can see here that by default it is considered a pass, and since this is our active question, any one of these controls that we do here will affect it. So we can mark it as a fail, mark it as a pass, and if you reload the page, that'll persist because that's making a change in the database. And then now that we have our question, we can see the different readings here. So these are all blank because I haven't started reading yet. So we have our GSR readings, our heart rate readings, and our SpO2 measurement readings, and these will all be displayed as a graph. Then we also have our tables with the actual values being read in, along with a couple other things like the reading ID, question ID, and the timestamp that it's read in at. So if we start reading here, then take just 1 second, you can see that it starts graphing all these different results. And the GSR is set to run every second. The Max 3102 is a little bit slower just because it has to gather many different data points and then take the mean of them in order to find its values. And then sometimes it'll also mark values as not valid, and then in that case they're just ignored entirely. So you can see that there's definitely some erroneous measurements with the Max 3102, and in large part this comes because it is not a medical grade component and there's no digital filtering techniques used to try and kind of normalize this. But that being said, you can see that it's still able to read the data in and graph it as we would expect it to. So we can stop the readings here, and then that'll just prevent these from adding anything else into the database. And then let's say we wanted to add another question onto the test. We can add a question here, and then you can see that it is now added to this dropdown and is the new active question. And so if we wanted to, we could do the same thing and start reading here, and it'll just repeat exactly what we saw. So let's say that we start reading in for a question and then realize, oh, something's wrong. For whatever reason, we need to get rid of those readings. You can do so with the reset question option, and then let's say we start reading again. It'll just start from the beginning and wherever it left off. So you can see everything was wiped there. So let's stop this. And if we want to, we can also delete the active question. So if we delete that question, it's then removed from the list. Then if we want to, we can reactivate this question and it will show up here. So let's say we want to go to another test. First, we complete the given test that we're on, and then we can activate the other test. And here we'll see all the different questions from this test. And these are some equally deep philosophical questions asked here. And if we activate these questions, you can see that little blip there, that it's actually showing us the results from when these were asked. So you can kind of go back through and monitor tests from the given day pretty easily here. And then if you want to, you can also, let's see. So we don't have a test for me yet. So I can complete this test. And then this was a user that was already in the database. We didn't just add them. I can create a test for them and do the exact same thing that I've shown you before. We also have the option to go look at past tests. So here, this has all the users that are in the database, and you can select them and filter the tests based off the name. So if you just look at the select menu, these are all the tests in the database, sorted both by name and by date. So let's say there was an overwhelming number and we just couldn't find what we're looking for. We can actually filter these by the user. So then we only have tests for me. And equally, if we want to remove the filter, we can do so like this. And then you cannot add any new questions or start any new readings on this because this is simply to display the results, but you can delete tests here. So sometimes you might want to view a test, and if there are no questions, it'll also tell you that there are no questions in the test. But then you can delete it if you don't want it for whatever. I apologize for the cut in the video. There was a small issue at the very end of the last recording that I just had to go address. So as I was saying, here you can view all the past tests. And so, for example, if I want to view this test, then I can view the readings from that test like so. You can see they're all here as well as in the table. And then if I were to go to this one, which I artificially created this test back to April 2nd. That way you can see that this works with days that are not the present day, because today is April 29th. So this question does not have any readings associated with it. And if I view the question reading, you can see nothing shows up as expected. And then if I go to some other random test here and select a question, this one actually also does not have any readings, so it's not the best selection on my part. But if I go here and view the question reading, then you can see everything shows up. That sums up this project. I hope you guys enjoyed. All of the code from this is on my GitHub, as well as instructions on how to get started. So it is this repository right here, and that'll also be linked in the video description. Thank you for watching.